Open your mind.
Good evening and welcome to Open Your Mind Internet Radio. You have myself, Alan James.
And you have myself, Butterfingers. Sorry for that musical interlude over the introduction. You have myself, Stephen George, as well. Very good evening. Happy Sunday.
Okay, Steve, if you want to have a chat with the chaps at TNS there.
Yes, I'll have a chat with the chaps at TNS.
Brilliant stuff. Do you want to do the communications?
Absolutely, yes.
Right,
We'll do the communications channel first. Info at OYMIreland.com. For your email, we also have the chat facility on the website. There are several people logged in there already, so we'll say a big hi to you. And we also have the guest book on the website as well, if you want to leave a message for this generation and future generations. You can navigate your way through to OYM Ireland, into the guest book, leave a message in there. And sorry, what I should have actually said was, if you want to join in the chat, go along to OYMIreland.com. On the left-hand side, scroll down till you see OYM chat. Click on that, and you can log in there. You can register with your name, or you can just stick in a temporary name or a fictitious makey-uppy name, and click the box that says, what's the box say again? Guest? Oh my god, I can't believe I forgot. Guest, yeah, and then just press submit and you'll be logged onto the OYM hotline. Alan.
Right, okay, well, it's Sunday the 2nd of September and we're still here. With a lot of talk about things going on, we are still here. Our guest on the show tonight is Mike from smartmeters.org.uk. We'll be bringing Mike in the next few minutes. Just a few things we're going to go through at the moment. If you want to have a chat about, do you want me to talk about that?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Just on the donation side, thanks again for people donating to OYM. Much appreciated. Now, as you know, one of the things we want to offer people is the scanning, the RF detector scanning, the microchip scanning for targeted individuals. Now, we were talking to Lars Judgard during the week, and one of the things that Lars recommended that we get as well is a thing called a frequency counter. The frequency counter not only will help us track down what frequency is being broadcasted from a person's body, but also it gives us a bit more sensitivity as to the location of where the item might be. So what we've done is we've changed the donation on the website at the moment to the frequency counter. So if it's a case, if you can pop over there and you have a few euros, 2, 3, 4 euros, wherever you can afford, if you can pop over there and just add to the donations, that'd be fantastic, because as soon as that we have the funding for that, we'll actually go and get the frequency counter as well, and then we'll have them 2 devices, and then all we'll have to do is the training with Lars, and then we'll be ready to offer scanning to targeted individuals. So if you could do that, that'd be fantastic to support us. And thanks again for people who are interested on the AdSense ads on the website and who are clicking on them ads just to see what they are, and obviously we benefit from the clicks as well. So thanks for doing that. The other thing that we did earlier on today, we were down in Dublin Airport. We met Stuart Strudlow in the airport and we did a video interview with Stuart. Really nice guy, had a great chat with Stuart. So what we're going to do is we're going to get the video organised and get it together. And then when it's ready during the week, we'll get that up and then we'll send an email out to the registered users to let them know the video is up there. We'll have to kind of apologise, as we have done on the video, that unfortunately in the airports it's very busy, very noisy, and the microphone wasn't the best on the video camera, but you can hear him talking. You just have to kind of listen very closely. But it was a good interview. We had good information to talk about. So we'll have that up hopefully during the week when we have that sorted. And as I say, if you're not a registered user, we recommend you be registered, because obviously we get emails in during the week and we find information out which is quite important. Now, one of the things, we got an email off an ex-guest on the show, funny enough. I won't mention any names. And he did say that a lot of the information that we send out on the links seems to be more negative than positive. And unfortunately, the majority of the information that we get in is a lot really negative than positive. So, apologies for that. But what can you do? And people are telling you what's going on, and it's not good news. We do make a judgment call on a lot of the links, and we decide whether they go out or not. So we are holding back some links which we don't send out, which we send out the links which we find are most interesting and most beneficial. We feel, and then you can form your opinion based on what you see. And the last thing on the list here for the general stuff is. If people, I don't know if the people have seen the video of Pat Rabbit, which the guys at TNS recorded and put up there. A very, very interesting video. Very interesting video of Pat Rabbit sitting in the restaurant with a friend of his, and a guy getting arrested for actually not doing anything. All he did was he handed an envelope over to Pat Rabbit, and he said, "Pat, could you please read that?" And that's all he did. And apparently the staff in the restaurant called the police in, and the police took the guy out, asked him to go, and removed the guy and kind of arrested him. And for no apparent reason than just giving Pat Rabbit an envelope. And apparently the guy that was with Pat Rabbit agreed that that guy wasn't causing trouble, or he wasn't being abusive. So he was not only arrested unlawfully, but if you look in the video, I don't think the guards actually read the person his rights before they took him away or went to arrest him, which they're supposed to be doing. So that's another thing. So I think when that goes to court, I think there's going to be a few questions asked on that one. How are we doing, Steve? We okay?
Oh my God, no, we're not okay. Well, we know we're transmitting, we're getting out there. We're just having a little bit of an issue getting online with the TNS player. So we're just going to keep working on that for a moment.
Okie dokie. Well, do you want me to go through my week and then we talk about your week?
My week is crap. Go ahead. How was yours?
Well, apart from obviously seeing Stuart today and having a chat with Stuart on the video, I'll just talk a few things about a few things that I came across during the week and what I was doing. I went up to meet Ben Gilroy during the week. Had a great chat with Ben, and had a chat with him just about a few things that are going on. Ben has a few bits of video footage which he's hoping to get online shortly, and get the DVD out or get the video out of the stuff he's done. So it's quite interesting. Now, he did have one out there, I don't know whether people have seen it, where he was in he rescued, I won't say rescued, but they came to the aid of an 80-year-old woman who was being evicted from her flat by the sheriff, and he went in and he helped her out there. Very good video, very entertaining, I have to say. Well, you know, I won't say he helped her out, but, you know, he was there and he was fighting off the sheriff, so to speak. Right, the other thing that we've come across and that we were informed about during the week was the legal challenge refused over first genetically modified potatoes. So the first genetically modified potatoes over here in Ireland, a group of campaigners in the Irish Republic have been refused the legal challenge over the first trial of a genetically modified potato crop. In July, the Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, gave the go-ahead for a GM blight-resistant potato crop to be tested in County Carlow.
The blight, I actually remember that. I think I remember hearing about that in history class in school, the potato blight. So they want to genetically modify the spuds now. The spuds.
The spuds in Carlow.
What next?
Well, there you go.
Actually, come here now. Do you know what? Someone said to me a long, long time ago about genetically modified foods, and that I can't remember. I do believe it was on this show, actually, and they spoke about genetically modified foods, and we all kind of said, oh, we don't touch them, and we're all against them and all that. And maybe you might remember who said it, but they said that we are already, and have been for a long time, eating genetically modified foods in the form of seedless grapes. Seemingly grapes generally have seeds, and they have been, in the past, genetically modified to not have grapes.
Well, that's the point. You have a point. They were obviously
I will
modified.
have a point. Thanks very much.
They were actually modified. How are we doing with the TNS player?
It's looking. The outlook is bleak.
Very bleak. Okay, so unfortunately, I don't think we're up and running on the TNS player.
We're not. I have communicated with the lads, and I think they're going to try and sort something out for us there. Hopefully, they might just rebroadcast the stream. But yeah, we're just having technical difficulties there at the moment.
Okay, not to worry. If the lads at TNS could rebroadcast the stream, that would be fantastic. Maybe that's what they're doing at the moment. So if you're doing that, lads at TNS, thank you very much for doing that. Right, and the other thing was Target Express. Now, for those of you in Ireland, you probably heard the story about Target Express. It's a courier company that went in. Well, it's gone into administration through no fault of their own. Basically, the bank won't play ball with them. They've offered to make payments off a loan that they were due, or VAT that they had to pay to the Inland Revenue, was it? It was the Inland Revenue, wasn't it?
It was actually, yeah.
Yeah, it was the Inland Revenue, and they had to pay VAT off. Anyway, they offered to pay certain amounts of funding back to the Inland Revenue. So the Inland Revenue, in their, obviously, wisdom, decided that, no, they won't do that. They'll send in the administrator, and they'll shut down the business and they lay off 400 people. Instead of saying, okay, let's try and keep the business going and keep 400 people employed, and we let you pay off the VAT bill ad hoc, bit by bit. No, actually they're putting more of a strain on the taxpayer by having 400 people, let go. Now, I don't know what the common sense is. Maybe we're missing something here, or maybe somebody knows something about what's going on. This doesn't make sense to me. Why Inland Revenue would turn down the offer of payment from a company and keep the company going with 400 staff. It doesn't make sense to me. So if anybody knows anything about it, let us know.
Or the knock-on effect as well.
Well, the knock-on effect of, obviously, Target Express and all their suppliers and everything else tied in, it's a house of cards. So I don't understand why they're doing that, but obviously they're doing it for a reason. And the last thing on the list, again, John Moore, listening to John Moore, and he's talking about his 4 insider contacts regarding, now they're talking about the banking collapse, and he's talking about the US general election won't happen because Obama doesn't want it to happen. So he's saying that it's all going to go off within about 7 weeks. He said the 3rd week in October. And, we've had dates before, and dates have come and gone, and we've been told certain things, and they've come and gone. So, again, use a bit of discernment and take it with a pinch of salt, because, we've heard this before. But just to let you know about it, it's on YouTube. It's the show that you need to listen to is the 29th of August. And if you go to YouTube and type in John Moore Show, you'll actually hear what he says. So he's just saying that there's 4 different insiders who don't know each other have said that the election's not going to go down because Obama wants to stay in power. The banking collapse, the banks are going to shut down the ATMs, the credit cards won't work, blah, 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 blah. And that's when it's all going to kick off and start, maybe in the States. And obviously it's going to have a knock-on effect to Europe as well if that happens. So it's always good to know these things. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but, you never know. Just to let you know anyway. This is what's being said. So that's really what's been happening during the week. Steve, is there anything you want to add to that?
I'm just going to add to that. The show must go on. I've just typed that into the old thingamajiggy there. We've been playing around with the technology over there, trying to get it up and running with the help of Michael there over at TNS. And Michael, thanks for the help if you're listening. Thanks for the help, but unfortunately, it was not to be, and we'll just have to continue on, as the fella says. Any news from my end? Well, I was gonna say about the Ben Gilroy thing as well, with that eviction of the 80-year-old lady in Blanchardstown. Ben was obviously on site there. We didn't actually witness the eviction. Ben arrived after the lady had left the premises, and the locks were getting changed on the door at that particular time. And he, as Ben said himself, he showed the locksmith the error of his ways. The locksmith then obviously didn't want to be involved, and he handed the keys over to Ben Gilroy, and Ben Gilroy went in, and himself and his team from People for Economic Justice, They secured the premises and are going to be getting that lady hopefully back in there. But she did leave, as she said herself in the video, or as Ben said on her behalf. She was frightened of being forcibly removed from her home, and that it may bring on a heart attack. So what she did was she left. They got her put up somewhere safe, in a safe house, and Ben was kind of dealing on with the situation on her behalf. The Gardaí did arrive at the door, and as was said in the video, they did conduct themselves in a professional manner, and fair play to them. They didn't become abusive or anything else. They were just there. They tried to deal with the situation, but as the video shows, Ben had the situation under control. So that was fine. If you go along to People for Economic Justice, go along to their website there, you can actually see the video. We may have a link for it on OYM, but it's worthwhile having a look, and even on their Facebook page as well. And another little news story as well that's still ongoing is the Seamus Sherlock situation. That's Seamus. He's a farmer in County Limerick, and his home was also trying to be... Well, sorry, the bank were trying to take his home off him as well, evict him and his 5 children. So the good people of Ireland have actually, well, they've taken a stand. They went down in their droves, and they have supported Seamus in his fight to keep his home, keep the roof over his head, and the heads of his 5 children as well. And they're kind of, I won't say they're holding the vigil, but they're down there. They're banding together. There are people coming and people going, and it's all spirits are good at the moment. And hopefully it'll stay that way. But if anyone in Ireland is at a loss, maybe has a couple of hours to spare, might be in the vicinity, do check out the Facebook page as well, for People for Economic Justice, and you can get information there on, how to get down to Seamus Sherlock's farm, and just be there and support your brother.
Excellent. I've just posted up the link on the chat facility to that to the video of Ben Gilroy. So if you want to have a look at that link, or cut and paste it and have it till later, you can do that. Now, I'm just looking at before we bring Mike in, I'm just looking at the chat facility there, and people are talking about a smart meter blocker. I'm not too sure what that is, a smart meter blocker.
I think it's called a roll of tinfoil.
Yeah.
Well, that's what we've seen. We've seen people just covering the meter in tinfoil. That's supposed to reflect the signal back.
Well, we'll actually talk about that. Well, let's bring in Mike and we'll talk about it. Mike's probably come across a few solutions. Anyway, good evening, Mike. How are you doing?
Hi guys, I'm very well. Thanks for having me on.
That's no problem, Mike. Mike, you are with the website smartmeters.org.uk. Can you tell us a bit about your organisation and the website?
Yeah, sure. Minor correction, it's stopsmartmeters.org.uk.
Sorry.
But we set that up about 8 months ago now. Myself and a friend of mine who's a former GP and a self-diagnosed and self-recovered sufferer of electrosensitivity. And we kind of both came to the issue of smart meters around about the same time, realised the major threats that these things represented to our health, our privacy, our safety, our security in the home, amongst other issues, and decided that we would try to remedy the lack of awareness that we saw about what smart meters are and how rapidly these things were entering people's lives. So we set up the site. I don't know how many visitors we have on a day-to-day basis, but we have about 250 members now. And principally what we're engaged in is just trying to raise awareness about the dangers associated with smart meters. We're very much a grassroots organisation. We feel as though the government isn't listening to the concerns that we rightly have about smart meters across all the issues that we are trying to raise people's awareness about. So we're relying on people like you guys to help us get the message out there, and people that are listening to the show to take action themselves and to help us. This is the first piece of Orwellian technology that we're going to have to give our consent to having in our homes. You mentioned that there seems to be a lot of bad news around at the moment, and I'd absolutely agree with that. But on a positive note, this is something that it is bad news, but the good news is we can all do something about it. Whether this program realises its objectives or not is absolutely down to us, and whether or not we take action.
I agree with you there. Well, before we actually go on and talk about smart meters, there is a question, a relevant question has come in from one of our listeners who's on the chat facility. Do you want to take that question? Because obviously this person's not aware of the technology. Yeah,
well, obviously Mike is there as well. I have sent a message back to Lord Vapor, one of our regulars.
Okay.
And you can probably see it there, Mike. He's just wondering, can you tell us exactly what is a smart meter for people who've heard the word bandied about but don't actually know what it is?
Okay, smart meters are, I guess, being positioned as the next generation of utility and energy meter. So if at the moment most people have got some kind of energy metering system in their home in the form of an analog meter that gets read every so often throughout the course of a year by a chap from your local energy company who comes around to take a reading from it. Apparently, this is such a big problem for us to entertain one of these guys or girls a couple of times a year. You know, we have to put up with estimated billing that the energy companies are spending and the government is spending an absolute fortune on building infrastructure that will put a new kind of meter in our home that just has many problems associated with it. But principally, what these things do and how they differ from the old style analog meters is that they are digital and they emit intense pulses of radio frequency and microwave radiation, electromagnetic radiation, in a mesh network with your neighbour's energy meters. And one of your lucky neighbours, possibly your smart meter or smart meters, because the savings that are being touted are actually that the government is saying, you know, you'll have reduced bills. That apparently comes about if you have at least 2 of these meters in your home, one for electricity and one for gas. And they communicate your energy usage in real time back to the utility provider or near real time. But it does so with incredibly harmful electromagnetic radiation. We can talk about how these things connect, but essentially what's not really being said overtly at the moment is that smart meters are the central component in a home area network. And the vision for a home area network is for all of your appliances. In fact, anything that you buy and take home that in sometime in the near future will likely be equipped with a very inexpensive, very small, almost indetectable radio frequency identification transponder. It will communicate with each of those devices, your usage of that device back to your utility company, and then the utility company will have the means and the method to sell that data on to any willing buyers to provide an insight into what you're doing in the sanctity of your home.
And that's all. I mean, all that information is private information. So for people who aren't familiar with smart meters, let's just clarify what we mean by privacy. They will know what room you're in. They will know when you take a bath. They will know when you have the lights off, when you have the lights on, when the kettle goes on, when the shower goes on, when you're having the shower. This is the kind of information they will get. Now, none of that is their business. That's all private information, and it's not their business to know this. But if you have a Wi-Fi, if you have a smart meter built in, which is based on kind of Wi-Fi technology, they will be able to tell all this information from this meter. That's how important it is not to have these meters in your house.
Absolutely. I have on our site we posted a story a few months back where a group of ethical hackers in Germany showed how easy it was to breach smart meter security. Apparently in Germany they were using, or at least the smart meters that they managed to successfully hack, we're supposed to be using SSL technology, secure socket layer encryption technology, which is not particularly secure in today's age. But the security was actually disabled, so it was very easy for these guys to get into the smart meter console, and they were able to show that smart meters are so smart in terms of invading our privacy. They can tell what film you're watching on TV. Your television, even if it's not a smart TV, which are the new generation of smart TVs that are being thrown at us, even if you have an old style TV, it puts out a unique, what's called a digital signature, and it has a unique power output based on the amount of light that's being emitted from the kind of film that you're watching. And they were able to show that smart meters can determine what you're watching on television. So you're right, Alan, this is not scaremongering on your part. This is effectively an end to privacy.
Exactly, and if you look at the bigger picture, for people who don't realise, this is not just about them getting the privacy information. It's about they want to build an actual grid system. So they can track you, because we do talk about targeted individuals and people that have been already microchipped, and we're going to be offering the scanning for that. Now, what this Wi-Fi grid will give the powers to be was not just the tracking with the mobile phone, but they can track you from house to house, even if you don't have a mobile phone. If you're in this Wi-Fi, imagine, I suppose, a bit like sonar, where the sonar signal is sent out, and like a bat would send out a sonar signal, and then it would bounce back, and the bat would know exactly where the creature is or where the animal is he wants to attack and eat. Well, this is the same. The Wi-Fi signal will be spread out, and it'll have a coverage. And as you go from one area to another, you'll be walking from one Wi-Fi meter to another. They will be able to track you that way. And I think if you want to expand on that, Mike.
I'm not too hot on chipping of we mortals, but what I do know is that earlier this year we had something called IP version 6 Day, which happened to fall on the 6th of the 6th. And this was a celebration of the fact that the internet as it previously ran, which was on a protocol called IP version 4, had effectively been running low on addresses. So if you type in if you're not technical, if you type into your web browser oymireland.com, what happens in the background is that web address resolves to a domain name server, and what's used for fetching the right page then put back on your browser is an internet protocol address. This is a string of numbers, effectively, that every web page, and every website on the planet has to have in order for it to be findable when you type in a search. What happened with that is apparently we've run so low on these things that we now need IP version 6, which is a new, bigger and bolder IP addressing system. And what's now been introduced is let me see. This is 340 undecillion IP addresses. I'd never heard of the number undecillion before, but it represents a trillion. So we now have 340 trillion new IP addresses available to us that are basically designed to enable what's being called, in very cuddly terms, and in my view quite deceptive terms, the Internet of Things. In reality, I hope this isn't too crude for people, but I'm sure you've heard the expression, you can't polish a turd. You can roll it in glitter. And that's exactly what they've done with the Internet of Things, because this is basically a total surveillance society grid.
Well, let's explain. We'll elaborate a bit on that and explain from a day-to-day purpose what that means. And basically, what it means will be that technology in the future will all have an address. It'll all have an individual ID which can be accessed over a network, either through a hardwired network or through Wi-Fi. Yeah. So basically, having all your equipment, like your TV and your computer, like we know what the computers have it, but anything that's electrical, even your fridge, anything like that, your fridge, your freezers. And one of the things they talked about was that, and they have it in some hotels, they know what stuff you take out of the minibar. Yeah. So you can't lie to them because they know you've had 2 Cokes and a Mars bar. For whatever reason, they know you've taken them out of the minibar. And that will be the same thing. So in the future, when you go shopping and all your produce will have an RFID chip, they will be able to scan your fridge. I mean, this is really Big Brother. And they'll say, okay, like all the things in your fridge you bought, hang on, them eggs. Them eggs weren't bought. Where did you get them? Who gave you them eggs? You can't have them eggs. You have to buy eggs. You shouldn't be getting eggs off people. That's not a proper registered store. And this is how Big Brother's going to work. Everything is going to have an RFID chip. Like the clothes system now, when you buy clothes, go into a shop, they all have tags, they all have RFIDs. Credit cards all have RFIDs. And there's even, the scanners that you can, I've seen a guy doing it as an example. A lady had a RFID credit card in a handbag, and all he had to do was scan it. All he had to do was walk by the handbag to scan the details and clone her card. He didn't even have to take the card. He just had to get close enough to her to pick up the RFID to actually scan it. And
Yeah.
this is Big Brother. Everything will have an RFID chip. Everything will have an IP address. So they'll be able to track it, access it, and check for things. And it is Big Brother. It really is on that scale. If you want to, Steve, you were going to say something there earlier about.
No, it's just when you were talking about all the devices in your home that would, essentially have RFID. Well, not so much RFID, but would have an IP address. I remember hearing, and I also, again, I think it was on this show. This is something that I heard maybe 20 odd years ago, and I believe now it's kind of like the whole Star Wars and Star Trek thing. It's now moved from the realms of, well, maybe in the future, and well the future is here now, whereby your fridge will be connected to the that would have an IP address that will be connected to the network. So therefore, when you buy stuff from a store, all these items would have RFID chips. So when you're loading up your freezer or your refrigerator, the refrigerator would make note of everything that goes in. And then when you're running low on stuff, let's say your fridge is nearly empty, the refrigerator itself can log onto the internet, order your groceries and have them delivered to your door. Now, I mean, obviously there's a little bit more to it than that. It's not just that simple. It obviously has to be set up and tested and all. But, that technology is I won't even say it's around the corner. It's on our doorstep now. 20 years ago, geez, Steve, you're old. Well, hang on a second. Well, I'm obviously more than 20, but yeah, I mean, that technology, Sammy, is around today, and with everything on the net, and even these smart TVs. I mean, what we heard a couple of weeks back about these smart TVs, that once your TV is on the net, then essentially you could be sitting in the comfort of your own home. The TV could be switched off, and someone somewhere can, press a button or a series of buttons. They can access a microphone on your TV, obviously through a speaker or whatever, and they can actually monitor your room, what you're speaking about, and in the privacy of your own home with the TV in the off position, just because it's connected up to the net, connected up to this whole grid system. I mean, obviously I'm not explaining it very well, but the technology is there to basically spy on us 24 hours a day, seven days a week. And we also heard before that with this grid system from the likes of the smart meters, with the kind of signal that they're putting out, it will be essentially like an X-ray. Not so much an X-ray. What do you call those scans that you get? Walter spoke on. Like a pregnant woman will get a scan.
Oh, the ultrasound.
Like an ultrasound, yeah. Then information could be fed back, and you could be pinpointed exactly where you are in your own home, whether you're sitting on the toilet, sitting in the kitchen having your dinner, or whether you're upstairs, having a snooze or whatever else people get up to in the upstairs of their dwellings. So basically, yeah, that information could be all, sent back to a grid system, and people who you don't know could be watching your every move, knowing what you're eating. And as someone correctly pointed up in the chat box there, I think it was a Crown copyright, I'm not sure, that your fridge, your refrigerator could be also on the net, and that could be connected to the health insurance companies. So based on what you put into your fridge, when you go for a quote for health insurance, they go, "Oh, we know what you've been eating." Yeah,
exactly.
Stuff.
Well, there's a video on the internet, I don't know whether you've seen it, where the guy rings up for pizza, and this person on the end of the phone has all the information about his health details, where he lives, the location, everything else. And she goes, "Oh yeah, you went to the doctor last week and you have a heart problem, so we don't recommend that pizza because you won't be covered under medical insurance." And it goes through the whole lot. And at the end of the day, he has to change his order because she has everything. She knows about his wife, where he worked, when he went on holiday, whether his credit card. Have you ever seen that video?
No.
I'll track it down and I'll send it out to everybody on the registered list. It's a fantastic video. And you hear it's like a call centre. And they literally have all the information about you. And you can't, and they say, we don't recommend you get that pizza because you've got a heart problem. So we recommend this, and you get a discount on this and that, and you've been on holiday, so obviously you lost a few pounds. So and all this information he had, which is fantastic. But we're sidetracking a little bit. Let's go back to smart meters. What's the state of play at the moment with smart meters in the UK?
Well, the aim is to have all homes and small businesses equipped with at least one smart meter by 2019. The original date was 2020, but apparently the benefits of this are going to be so mind-blowingly amazing for us that the date's been brought forward by a year. What that means is that we're actually in the government and the energy providers and utility providers are in consultation at the moment on standards associated with smart meters, communications, data set standardization, all that kind of thing. And some of them are a ways away from actually deploying smart meters, but the UK's biggest energy provider, British Gas, has started deploying their own smart meters way ahead of the curve because they're so keen for their customers to see the benefits of smart meters. They've deployed about 400,000 already, and I think they're aiming to deploy 2 million in total by the end of next year. And they've actually been told, because this consultation process is happening right now, they've been told that new standards are emerging and that 25% at least of their smart meters are going to have to be replaced. But BG, it seems, are foaming at the mouth so much about getting these things into our homes that they've said, yeah, no worries. We'll replace them. So where we are at the moment is that they're in various places across the UK. There's a few, or in patches across the country. But there is the project mantra. This is quite interesting, actually, in terms of the parties that have been involved in promoting the idea of smart grid. You've got a lot of big companies who are behind this and smart meters, and I'm not going to kind of go into details about those, but we found a document earlier this year by a legislative body called Consumer Focus, which actually at the end of this presentation, which was talking about readying society for smart meters from ostensibly a consumer point of view, they were very much promoting the idea of a soft start for a fast finish. And I happened to tune into a parliamentary debate a couple of months ago. Well, I say debate, it was about 10:30 at night, and there were about 8 MPs present. One of whom was Charles Hendry, who is one of the energy ministers here. And he actually mentioned that soft start for a fast finish had basically become the project mantra. So what I believe there is a reliance on here is for awareness to remain at the level that it is currently in order to get these things deployed as quickly as possible. So, we have to absolutely be on our guard with regards to, when we're offered one of these things, and we have to be communicating to our neighbours. There is a heavy propaganda campaign underway currently. There's adverts on the TV now, which are laughable, if you look at them from a rational point of view, because they've clearly had a lot of money spent on them. It's very much future. I've seen two. One is very much kind of futuristic, and it says hardly anything about what smart meters do, but it captivates the viewer into this sense that if you get a smart meter, you're going to be super cool, down with the kids, in the times, and don't worry about it. It said barely anything about what these things actually do. I think there might be some reference to, an eradication of estimated billing, but there's another one which is, a cloudy, dreamy-like scene, of happy families and how accessing your thermostat when you're down at the park with your kids, rather than spending any quality time with your kids, why don't you check whether, you've got eggs in the fridge?
Okay.
So people are being sold, on this concept that there is a utopia in store if you get a smart meter.
They're being sold a lifestyle.
What's that? Yeah, it's lifestyle.
They're being sold a lifestyle, right? We have a little bit of a debate going on the chat facility there about one of the questions was, what can we do about it to stop them from putting smart meters in? Now, we have obviously both sides arguing the point, saying it won't work. Now, we know that over here in Ireland, there's a village or a small town that is trialing the smart meters at the moment. Now, I'm just saying what I did. I'm not saying that I don't know whether it's going to work, but this is just what I did. I rang up the electricity supplier, my electricity supplier, and I told them that I would put them a notice that they were being recorded. The phone call was being recorded. And I put them a notice, and I revoked their implied right of access to my property. And I've said, I do not want a smart meter. I've no interest in getting a smart meter, and you've no right and no access to my property. And if they do, they will be trespassing. Yeah. Okay. Now, the guy at the other end of the phone didn't know really what to say. So he said, can you hang on a minute? So we went off and came back about a minute or two later, and he said, and he started reading the Data Protection Act to me. And I went, yeah, that's fine, fair enough. Obviously, they don't want it broadcast on YouTube. And I said, yeah, that's fine, no problem at all. I said, I'm just letting you know that that's the way things are, and that's the way it's going to be. Yeah. And that was it. That was the end of the phone call. Now, people can write a letter. Now, I know Crown Copyright here says that it won't work, but we won't know until it comes to them installing my meter, and I pull out the file or the audio of the phone call and say, I'm sorry guys, but I've told you guys I don't want a meter, and that's just the way it is. Yeah. Now, we've already had Seamus Sherlock, a chap over here, where the electricity company was switching off power to households because they couldn't afford it. And due to, I believe, I've been told it was something got to do with human rights, they had to switch electricity back on, which they weren't happy about, but they had to do it for human rights. So technically, the electricity company cannot switch off your power if that's what Seamus found a loophole in, or found something in the human rights law, or the European human rights, saying you have to have power. The same will be the same. It'll be the same for water. They cannot deny you water when it's required for your survival.
Yeah.
So even though, I know Crown Copyright here on the chat facility is saying that, it's not going to work. Well, I'd prefer to go and tell them that their implied right of access has been revoked, for them to actually come and say, well, we were allowed access to your property. I'm telling them before they come. So they know that if they come, they're going to be trespassing because I've already warned them. So if that went to court, they will know. I'll say, well, so this is when I found them. I told them I didn't want it, and there's no need for it. I'm not going to benefit from it. It's your benefit, not mine, so I don't want it. This is the problems with it. And then, see where we go from there. But I think you have to do something rather than nothing.
I would agree. What you've done there is removed implied consent, which is very important. I have first-hand experience of how some of the energy companies are trying to dupe us into, and providing misinformation and disinformation with regards to what smart meters actually are. And a lot of people are going to be caught well off guard with these things because we don't know about them, enough. There isn't widespread enough awareness. But people will, in some cases, they might have, the courtesy of having a letter sent to them saying, we're going to come round to upgrade your meter. But in some cases, then the meter installers might actually turn up and just say, look, we're just here to upgrade your meter. Your old one is out of date. And most people are going to say, okay, no worries, not realising what they're actually letting in through the door here.
Exactly. And one of the guys on the chat facility here said, it could be the case that if they know that you're out, they'll go and do it anyway. But again, that's trespassing. And I know what some people have done, especially in the States, they've actually built a cage around the meter, where the meter is, in the wall where the meter cabinet is. They've built a case and put padlocks on it. So when the meter reader comes around, he can see the meter itself, the electricity meter, and he can read the meter because that's all he needs to do. But everything else around that has been enclosed and padlocked, so nobody can get to it, which I think is another good way how to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I hope. It's crazy even having this conversation, isn't it? When you're having to talk about taking measures like that. But there is an absolute concerted attempt to get these things into our homes or outside of our homes, wherever your current meter needs to be. And it's interesting that somebody cited, European Convention on Human Rights, because that's something that we cite in. I'll talk about this in more detail in a minute. We're running a kind of separate campaign for people to send a message of in fact, it's a notice of non-consent for smart meter installation and a notice of liability for any harm caused by either a smart meter that's installed on their property or a smart meter that's installed elsewhere that happens to irradiate them or irradiate their water. And we'll come on to the water thing in a minute. I just saw in the chat room as well. These things breach many of our human rights. Article 1 of the first protocol, Article 2, which is our right to life. We've not really talked about the health aspects here, but there's so many health problems, documented health problems, peer-reviewed studies that categorically show that there is harm caused by even low levels of electromagnetic radiation that are well below the standards that we adopt, at least here in the UK, called ICNIRP standards. Article 3 of the European Convention on Human Rights, which is degrading treatment. This is privacy invasion that we're having, and our lives are being put under a microscope. Article 5, right to liberty and security. Article 8, right to respect for privacy, private family life. And Article 12, which is the right to marry and to found a family. Founding family is under threat here because there is damage associated with electromagnetic radiation to sexual organs. We've got a study which shows that sperm is killed off 3 times more quickly when it's exposed to the kind of signal that comes from a mobile phone or an iPad or a wireless laptop than when it's not exposed to that. It dies so I mentioned dies 3 times more quickly. It has 3 times less motility, 3 times less vitality. And we also posted on our site recently the intergenerational effect of electromagnetic radiation on girls and what it does to their eggs. And this is something that Walter talked about as well, I think, which I tuned into. There's potential for this to have significant problems for future generations as well. So this is absolutely serious. My view is that, this is not a smart meter that you're being offered. This is something that is going to be, causing, potentially putting your health under threat, certainly putting your privacy, your sovereignty in your home, your safety, your security under threat. It might be called a smart meter, but from my point of view, this is a harmful surveillance device. So if you were offered a surveillance device that harmed you with electromagnetic radiation by anybody tomorrow, no matter how nicely they were dressed or how smart their haircut was, would you take it? And my view would be go from there. Refuse these things, remove their implied consent by writing to them or ringing them, like you say, and recording it. There are data protection laws, so you can't put that thing on the web, but you can prove that you've sent them messages. You can send these things by recorded delivery. But get your neighbours to do the same. Speak to your family. I know that you guys cover, so many great topics on this show, but this is an opportunity for you to bring a halt to a very important part of the society that is emerging, where everything is monitored, and you don't have to sound, I'm going to use inverted commas here, a conspiracy theorist when you're talking about the facts associated with smart meters. These things are, whole kit and caboodle, hook, line and sinker. This is a ready-made package of just things to put people off having them. So
definitely, we definitely need to get out there and advertise. Now, I do see it as all part and parcel of what we're doing. I mean, we know the targeted individuals, what we're going to be doing is offering scanning for that, but we have used the RF detector, which we was kindly donated. The funds were donated by our listeners. Thanks again for that. And we have found out things using the RF detector, which we wouldn't have known had we not purchased it. And what we were talking about was the fact of the Xbox 360 and the Wii. Now, the Xbox 360 I found my son has an Xbox 360, and even though it was powered off, there was electricity going to the Xbox, but it was powered off. There's no power on it. It was still transmitting a signal. Now, I thought, and as Steve and probably a lot of other people thought, that when you switch off the Xbox, that like it's completely switched off, but it was still radiating a signal.
Yeah.
And the same with the Wi-Fi, our Wi-Fi routers. When we disabled Wi-Fi on the router, because it said it was disabled, obviously meant that you can't get access to it. But the signal was still being broadcast from the router. Now that's very strange, because you would want to switch it off and like have it switched off. So I ended up removing the antennas on the back of the router, and then that kind of killed the signal straight away.
Right.
Now with the Wi-Fi meters, it's going to be the same thing. What I've been kind of doing is, with the RF detector, while we're waiting on the frequency counter, we're obviously waiting on funding and donations from our listeners, hopefully, to get the frequency counter to complement the RF detector. We've been educating people with the frequency. I was down with a neighbour during the week, and I walked around the house and I was showing her her microwave going off, her deck phones going off, her Wi-Fi going off, and she couldn't believe it. And I said, well, there you go. There it is in front of you. This is the device to tell you what's going on. Now, Walter's device is obviously a bit better because the RF detector will only give you one signal, where Walter's device gives you different sounds depending on the frequency that it's picking up, which is pretty good. And we're hoping to be able to have them available by Christmas, fingers crossed, so we've been told. But we don't know. We'll have to see how we get on there. But, we have a message in there. Hang on. Okay, fine. So I think what we have to speak about, Mike, is the fact that we don't have smart meters now in Ireland, but they're thinking about it. What would you recommend to our listeners? Like, say, Lord Vapor, who had a question about the actual what is a meter. What would you start advising people to do? What have you told people in the UK to do? What has your website and your group told people in the website to start doing who want to stop this from being installed in the house?
So it's pretty simple, really. I've mentioned a number of times that awareness is the biggest problem that we have. If depending on the level of activism you want to engage in, it ranges from letting your energy company know, writing them, making a noise to your current provider or providers that you don't want these things. Give them a call, give them a hard time. Ask them what their plans are, ask them how these things work as well. I've been provided with so much false information when I've contacted energy suppliers, and appreciating that it's customer reps that we're talking to. These people are the energy company, so they should have the right information. And I've been told that these things don't emit microwaves. I've been told that there are laws coming into place that will force people to have these things. When I've complained about the quality of information that I've received, there's been admissions made that they do emit microwaves, but they're much lower than mobile phones. And all three of those contentions are abjectly false. So, let these people know that what, you're talking about. Ask them questions, see what they are able to provide you with in terms of information. And I'm willing to bet that they won't be able to provide you with very good quality information. If you want to step things up a gear, we have leaflets on our site, and you are perfectly entitled to download those things and turn them into versions that are more appropriate for your locality. We absolutely don't have the last word on smart meters, so set up your own campaign. That's what we did. I'm just a regular guy, and I realised that there was a problem here. So I would imagine that the same thing exists there. Set up a site, reach out to people, hand out leaflets, arrange talks. You could become a subject matter expert on smart meters in no time. We've provided loads of info on our site. America, Australia, and Canada are further ahead of us still, and we've taken a lot of learning from their campaigns and the information that they've been able to get access to. So, have a look on our site. It's stopsmartmeters.org.uk. Take from it whatever you like, and just start communicating with people. Give people a heads up about these things. I'd also say write to your MP for what it's worth. Show them that the odds are they don't have a clue about how smart meters actually work, really what they do, and what kind of threat they represent to our health and our privacy. Ask them what their view on it is. Arrange, to go to one of their, do you have like local surgeries there where your MPs will take, or clinics, whatever they're called, meetings with your local MP?
Yeah, I do think a lot of people should start phoning up and complaining about the smart meters. And I was just thinking there when you were talking about getting the information from the electric board. I might even, for the fun of it, ring up during the week and ask them and say, about these smart meters, can you tell me if they're dangerous to health, and record what he says. And I might even say to him, well, if you're going to guarantee that my health, guarantee now that my health is not going to be affected, then fine. Can you guarantee that? And just have a play with them and see what they say. But I do think the more and more people ring up and say about the smart meters and say, I don't want the smart meter, I don't want the smart meter. If you have an avalanche of people doing that, then they're going to have to start thinking about it. I did come across a PowerPoint presentation on the internet from a group of solicitors in Baggot Street in Dublin, worrying about the data protection side of things and, what they, how they're going to get around it. So that was quite interesting. Now, one of the listeners, Lord Vapor again, just said something here about, is it a mystery signal piggybacking on the Wi-Fi then, Alan? No, it's no mystery signal. The actual signal is the signal that they'll use on the smart meters. More than likely, that's what they're going to use to get the information. What frequency the smart meters are going to be broadcasting on, I don't know, but we do know that anything over 300 megahertz is classed as microwave, and microwave means it can harm your body.
Yeah.
It's cause and effect.
Like I said, the technology, some of the technology, at least here, is still kind of, in development and not yet rolled out or agreed, standardized. But I believe that it operates between 800 megahertz and 2.5 gigahertz, and you've basically got at least two, powerful microwave transponders in these things. One to communicate with your neighbours, smart meters, and for that then to be communicated back to the local cell tower, and one that's able to communicate with all of your smart gadgets when you're at home.
Exactly, and I'll tell you one thing, for our listeners, if anybody knows where these smart meters are installed, or knows somebody that has a smart meter, and it's not too far away, I'll be happy to, and I'm sure Steve will probably join in as well, to go down and do a video with the RF detector and showing the signal coming off the actual smart meter, and we'll get that on OYM so people can see how strong that signal is. So if you know anybody that has a smart meter or know where these are, by all means, let us know. Steve?
Yeah, we question in there from Crown Copyright, and he wants to know, are the digital meters installed by British Gas in 2008? Are these actually smart meters? He's not sure if you know the ones, Mike, but he said it's a white meter.
Yeah. I've certainly seen some that are white. If he's able to give me the make, then I'd be happy to look into it for him. He can contact me via the website info@stopsmartmeters.org.uk, and I'll happily take a look. If he wants to send me a photo of it, I'd look into it for him.
Yeah, because we've seen a lot of pictures on the net, and a lot of them that we have seen, it actually states on the meter, on the face of the meter, smart meter. So I'm guessing if there is going to be a lot of controversy, then maybe the next generation of smart meters probably won't have the words actually printed on them.
Yeah, that's quite possible.
I do think what they're going to do, as you said, Mike, quite rightly, is that they'll just turn up and go, "Oh, we're just replacing your meter. Can you give us access?" And that's all they'll say. They probably won't say anything else.
Yeah. Well, yeah. They're certainly not providing us with all the information that we need to make a decision about these things. If you just look at the advertising campaign, it's absolutely relying on an emotional sell rather than appealing to our needs. And if we were provided with the data about these things, then they wouldn't have a very successful program. So I think it's relying on appealing to our emotions, relying on us not critically evaluating information, in order for this to be generated. I mean, as an example, talking about the misinformation, and if you do ring up, I'd be really interested to hear, your stories and what you get back in terms of info over there. But, I gave you an example earlier where they initially said to me, no, they don't emit microwaves. And I'd said, I was going to complain about the info, and then they admitted that they do. Well, we got, let me see here, we got information that was obtained through a court order in California. There was a case, I believe, involving the California Public Utilities Commission and one of the energy providers out there. And they had been taken, challenged on the fact that these things are unhealthy and that they emit, huge amounts of electromagnetic radiation, and they do so very, very, very frequently. And they'd said, oh, no, it only emits, or it only communicates data usage data 6 times a day. And if you were to just stop there, then that last sentence in and of itself might be factually correct. But what the document showed is that there is a ream of other data communications taking place, and almost a constant heartbeat, from these smart meters communicating either back to the local cell tower or communicating to your neighbour's meters. And they'd really emphasised the fact that they were only communicating data, meaningful data 6 times a day or in any 24-hour period, but also showed that they were pinging and emitting these intense pulses up to 190,000 times a day. And it's these pulses that, have been shown to be particularly harmful as well.
Yeah, I mean, it is worrying. We did see a video during the week, didn't we, Steve, where a guy had a special detector, a smog detector, over his child's bed. And they said the same thing, that, it's only 6 times a day, but he had this detector and he was showing the spikes. There was the spikes, was it the smart meter and the spikes in the electricity as well? Something like that?
No, it was the smart, he had this little device. Well, it wasn't a little device, it had a kind of a big antenna on it, like a big tennis ball at the end of it. And it also had a digital LED, no it didn't, LCD display. And he brought it over to his house, well, into his child's bedroom where the child slept, and he just put it on the child's pillow. And he said he'd been on, he kind of complained about the smart meter, and it was there anyway, and there was no sign of it being removed. He left his device in place, and over a 15-minute period, he had the video on. He was just kind of talking. Some parts of the video were just kind of quiet, but you do hear a lot of noise. The frequency, the display on this meter changes, and it kind of gives a rough indication of what frequency it's actually transmitting on. The thing goes off, it blasts noise all over the place that the meter picks up. Sorry, it's audible only through this little device that he has, the same as the one that we have here. Similar to the one we have here. But when it goes off, the display goes up. When the meter reads it. Sorry, I'll start that again. When it detects the smart meter sending out a signal, this thing records it. It records the frequency and the level. And I think the level is measured, like, it could have been milliwatts, it could be watts. I'm not 100% sure. I can't actually remember. But he said every time it went off, it gave a different reading. But then he had this thing, little threshold set, so it would only register then if it went above the last reading. And he said over a 15-minute period, it went off several times, and then every couple of times that it went off, it was much louder and higher frequency and more powerful than the last time. But he said it was going off all day. I think he had a 15-minute video, but he said he also done it himself. He monitored it over a couple of days, and the video that he done was only kind of a short representation of, say, what happens on a daily basis. But he said it was going off, as he said, a couple of 100 times a day. And just as a matter of interest, the unit that we have here, we done a walk around of Alan's home and also of my home, and certain areas of my home where if you had said to me, do you reckon there's any RF here, I would have said no. And this little device picked it up, and it just it blew me away, because there's so much RF, and just because we can't see it, we can't hear it, we can't smell it, we can't touch it or taste it, you know, we don't even know it's there. But I don't know. Would it be possible maybe if I was to just maybe let people know where they can have a look at these devices?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah, because we actually found a supplier here in Ireland that's actually doing these devices, and it's a website. If you want, I'll type it into the chat. But it's called scorpiontechnology.ie, and they're actually selling these devices, and they're not mad money. So I mean, if anyone was even looking for one, obviously we're going to be, as Alan said, we're going to be offering the service where we can go down. Kind of within a certain proximity, really. We will go and we can have a look. We can do scans for people, and when we get this other frequency counter in, it'll be even more advanced. But if anyone wanted to pick one up, if they had a few bob to spare, they are actually available on that Scorpion devices. No, they're not Scorpion devices. It's scorpiontechnology.ie. It's an Irish website. It'll probably be more for people who are actually in Ireland, say maybe far down the south or way up north, who we wouldn't be able to get but they are there, So I mean, if people want to have check that out as well. And they also have that device. I think it's out of stock at the moment. The device that Walter had, which was a fantastic little piece of kit, based on what signal you were receiving, it gave out a different tone. So that if you're receiving a microwave from a microwave oven, it will be one tone. Decked phones, different tone. Wireless router, another tone, and then cell phone tower, a different tone as well. Wow, that's the most I've said in a long time.
I just recorded that. Fantastic.
I'm going to shut up now.
All right, Mike. So there you go, Mike. I know you said you wanted to talk to us about the device we're using. It's called a Watson RF detector, and it covers 1 megahertz to 6 gigahertz. And this is basically Jesse and Lars used a device called the JM20. Now, the JM20 is not manufactured anymore, but the Watson is identical to the JM20. So we went ahead and got that one, which does the job, and we're very impressed with it. I have to say, we are very impressed with it. It's picking up everything, which we're quite happy with. Now
I'm on the site there at the moment. Is this the RF Hunter?
RF Hunter, yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. That's the first one I've seen, and I've been looking for them.
Yeah. Well, that's the device that we have. That's the one we got, and we I have to say we're very happy with it. Now, they were going to get a frequency counter as well, and obviously to complement the RF Hunter, but that's really more for the targeted individual stuff. But I mean, if you're a techie and you want to get the frequency counter for checking the Wi-Fi signal or what frequency it's on, what that benefits you, I don't know, but I think just checking the RF at least is probably a good way to actually start picking things up. Now, for you going around people's houses and showing them, I mean, you can't be, when you have a video camera, or you go into somebody and you physically show them the signal which they're not seeing, I mean, that really is the evidence.
You're right, that is a very powerful way of doing it. I did a presentation it was an ad hoc, 10-minute talk actually, but on stage at an event a couple of weeks back, and I tried to do a demo with my RF EMF detector, and it failed spectacularly because I didn't realise that the microphone that I was using was wireless. But I'd showed it previously to people in the audience, and the facial expressions on people when you actually do show them, or help get them to listen to what they're being hit with, is priceless. It really does kind of, say 1,000 words and makes it real for people. It's like you say, you can't see it, smell it, or hear it, but it's absolutely there, causing damage to, your, calcium ions in your cells, double-strand DNA breakage, and leading to all sorts of health problems. It's a sad reality that the number of people with electrosensitivity is increasing. It's estimated that about 30% of the population have got some level of electrosensitivity that may manifest itself in something as potentially, benign as a headache, but maybe something as severe as, dizziness or insomnia, memory, concentration problems. But they're just not realizing what's causing the problem. 1 in 20 have got an acute level of electrosensitivity where the problems can, potentially make their lives a misery. And those numbers are increasing at the moment. And one thing that I wanted to mention is that we've here in the UK had some stories in the press over the last few months that have showcased, a couple of stories with people who have had to completely abandon, their towns or their cities because of the level of electrosmog and how it was making their lives just unlivable. And there was one poor guy who's taken to living in a caravan in the middle of the woods because of the health problems that he was being hit with. We've learned recently that Professor Dominique Belpome in Paris, who is an electrosensitivity expert and practitioner, he helps people recover from electrosensitivity. He's now developed a technique using brain scanning tools that can actually diagnose whether somebody is electrosensitivity or not. So we now have a method available to us, a clinical method and technology that's providing vindication for people who have been complaining for so long about problems associated with exposure to electromagnetic radiation. And I think we're going to need more of that, kind of technology. And it's also a sad reflection of our health service that none of the GPs, or very few at least, it's certainly not a formal thing, but GPs just aren't trained in how to spot electrosensitivity. So, if you go out to the doctor and you're complaining of sleeplessness or agitation or anxiety or heart palpitations, you might be given some kind of drug, but, the last thing you're probably going to get is advice to turn off your Wi-Fi router or to get rid of, your iPad or switch off Wi-Fi on your laptop. So, there's an awareness problem on that side as well in terms of the clinical practice. It's not just, Joe Public that aren't aware of this largely as well.
I know I think it's Sweden, one of the documentaries that I got off Walter. Sweden recognises electric sensitivity as a medical condition. And they treat it, and you get funding and stuff like that. Obviously, Ireland being Ireland, I mean, we're 15 years behind the labelling laws for Colgate toothpaste or any fluoridated toothpaste. So it doesn't surprise me over here and in the UK as well that they don't pick it up. But I was just on to Eric there. Eric was talking about he's surrounded by computers, a room full of Wi-Fi computers. Myself and Steve are into technology as well, and we had Wi-Fi on, we had deck phones, we had this, that and the other going, and to be honest with you, we've shut it all down now. We've disabled our routers. Our routers do not do Wi-Fi. We've taken the antennas off the back of our routers. We've got rid of our deck phones. We now have standard normal phones, that cable phones. And our laptops and our computers are all shut down. And even with my son's my son's Xbox, when he's finished now, I'll tell him to take out the power from behind it. So he only plugs it in to play it, and then he takes it out when he's finished, rather than leave the power in.
Good call.
So, we have to be aware of this, and people have to be aware of that. With all this technology, I mean, Walter's great for having documented proof of people getting brain tumours and cancers because of this. Now, the other thing you have to bear in mind is if there's any parents out there, if you have kids, that more than likely the schools and any public buildings will just go ahead and get the Wi-Fi meters, get in the smart meters, without even questioning it. So, if your kids are going to school, chances are the schools are going to get these in. So if they don't have them in, it might be an idea to go down to the head with some documentation to go, here's the evidence to say that they cause damage. Can you guarantee that my son or my daughter or my kids will not be affected by this? Because if you can't do that, then you're not getting it in.
Yeah. Absolutely. There is a race towards putting more and more of these wireless technologies into schools anyway. Just the other night, I was watching a recording of a panorama program from a few years back where the former head of the Health Protection Agency here in the UK, a guy called Sir William Stewart. We have a new head of the HPA now, but Sir William spent a year studying the effects of cell phones and after that time concluded that there was enough evidence of biological and molecular damage associated with cell phone towers that we should minimise exposure to electromagnetic radiation to children and to not site cell towers within a given distance of schools. And what's happening now is that schools are implementing, the next best thing to cell towers in classrooms. And if you think that's an exaggeration, this documentary showed using a guy called Alistair Phillips, who's a great guy. He runs powerwatch.org.uk. He took part in this documentary for Panorama and provided the kind of technical expertise to help measure electromagnetic radiation. And what he showed was at a school where there was a cell tower nearby, he was actually able to show, and ostensibly within the danger zone as well, he was able to show that the Wi-Fi routers that were sitting in the classrooms were exposing kids to more electromagnetic radiation than the cell towers were. And I dug this out just for you guys. I don't know whether you caught this, but this was in the Leinster Leader a couple of days back. And it's titled iPads for Pipers Hill Pupils. Incoming first-year pupils at Pipers Hill College in Killashee, Naas, are waving goodbye to school bags after the school decided to embrace technology and equip them with iPads. The 172 new students were given their iPads last Friday, making Pipers Hill the first school in Kildare to take this step, and among the first in Ireland. Some schools are piloting with one class or small groups, but we've decided to go all out, said Principal Colm O'Connor, who speaks excitedly about the iPad's potential in the classroom. It's time to move with the times. Most kids are using technology from a young age, and books can hold them back. So apparently now, not only is it necessary to provide education to irradiate kids who are particularly susceptible to the effects of electromagnetic radiation as well, but the time-honoured, tradition of actually reading books is now something that's a hindrance to education, according to these guys. And these people are supposed to be educating our kids. And what we're being told is, I guess, that if Socrates and Plato and Aristotle and everybody since had an app for that and an iPad, we'd all be living in, a new age of enlightenment. But sadly, they didn't.
Well, it's funny you should talk about iPads, because just sidetracking a little bit, apparently with the country being on its knees at the moment with austerity, and the government saying you have to tighten up and you have to do this and you have to do that, apparently the government ministers want to save paper, so they're getting 300 tablets ordered, and the contract is between Apple and Samsung. Would you believe that? So,
it's a joke.
Yeah, it's a joke. The government ministers they're getting 300 tablets apparently, and it's either going to be iPads or between Samsung, but they're going to be tablet PCs, and they're telling us to tighten their belts, and they're going off buying 300 tablets. I mean, it annoys me, the hypocrisy of these politicians who blatantly just keep putting it in our face, and I just don't know.
Calm down, Alan. Calm down.
I feel my soapbox coming out.
Easy now.
Let's have a bit of music.
Right.
Let's have a bit of music, and we'll come back.
Come on.
Because the soapbox is going to come back out if I don't hear it.
Do you want music?
Yeah, we'll have a bit of music.
Okay.
I can feel the soapbox coming out.
Okay, fine. How about this?
This is Open Your Mind Radio on OYMIreland.com, CNSradio.ning.com, and ICRadioNetwork.com.
And we're back, a little bit of AC/DC, Back in Black, for all the headbangers out there. And yes, I'm wearing my schoolboy shorts here in the studio. No, I'm not, Alan.
Right, okay. Well, we have Mike still with us. We're talking about the smart meters. But what we're going to do is we're just going to talk about low frequency first, and then we're going to go on to the water meters, which is what our listeners wanted to talk about as well at the start of the show. So, Mike, over to you. Tell us about the low frequencies you were just talking about during the break.
Sure. Well, one of the fallacies that's trotted out ad infinitum by the powers that be over here is that we follow the standards set out by ICNIRP a number of years ago. ICNIRP is an International Council on Non-Ionising Radiation, and basically they came up with a set of standards and guidelines some years ago, which our Health Protection Agency follows today. And there's a big problem with ICNIRP standards, and I'll just take a step back for a moment. Some of the medical professionals, the scientists, doctors, people who are actively studying the effects of electromagnetic radiation. Some of these people got together a couple of years back, 2007, I think it was, to put together a kind of consolidated view of some of the more serious effects associated with electromagnetic radiation, and they published it in a document called the Bio Initiative Report. And I believe we have a link to it on our site there, which you can download and read. It's about 600 pages long. Ollie Johansson, who's professor at the Royal Institute of Technology and the Karolinska Institute, which is the one that gives out the Nobel Prize for medicine, said that it could have been much, much longer, but they were self-funded, and that they could only go so far with it. Well, it turns out that the European Union read this document and, in short order, basically got together and voted the ICNIRP standards as out of date and obsolete. And this was off the back of the findings and recommendations from the Bio-Initiative report and the Sellerton statement. So what happens next? Well, unfortunately, we've still got those standards here in the UK. And if I'm not mistaken, what it effectively says is that unless you heat up by more than 1 degree, so unless you basically start cooking, then exposure to electromagnetic radiation is not harmful.
That's right.
We've shown that, in thousands of cases, again, that are linked on our site, that some very, very serious effects are associated with exposure at lower levels. Now, it just turns out, given we're talking about smart meters, that we also got some great insight from Daniel Hirsch, who is a senior nuclear policy lecturer at the University of California in Santa Cruz earlier this year. And Daniel was responding to some information that had been put forward, which suggested that smart meters exposed people to lower levels of radiation than your average mobile phone, microwave, Wi-Fi, etc. And what he was able to do was put together the data that had been used to reveal the true findings, rather than the ones that had been repackaged to fit with the party line. And he showed that smart meters can expose the body to between 160 and 800 times as much microwave radiation as a mobile phone. And remember what I said about the fact that these smart meters can emit these intense pulses 190,000 times a day. It's off the scale.
Well, if we could find out what frequency, we do know that the likes of broadband routers transmit, on Wi-Fi at 2.4 gigahertz, which is the same frequency as a microwave oven cooks food. So, more than likely the actual smart meters are going to be in around that frequency. So they'll be doing the same thing. I don't know whether we'll have the woodpecker sound, which is what Walter's device picked up, but yeah. It'll be doing the same thing. Yeah. I do think it'll be doing the same thing.
Do you know what I wonder? I have to just throw this in because it just popped into my head. Do you remember years ago when you had like an old AM transistor radio? I'm sure we've all had one. Whenever you had an old AM transistor radio broadcasting on the AM band, and if you switched on one of the old CRT, the cathode ray tubes, that's the old TVs with the big TVs, and whenever you put an AM transistor radio near them, the little transistor radios used to go berserk, all this mad noise coming out of them. And it would be just an interesting thing if anyone has a little small AM radio, just maybe tune it off one of the. I know there's not a lot of radio stations on AM now at the moment, but if you just maybe tune it in between some stations, and just go near the say the Wi-Fi router or a DECT phone, just for giggles, and just see if you pick up anything. That'd be just kind of an interesting little thing.
Well, I'd like to find somebody that has a smart meter so we can go down and check it and do a video and put it on our YouTube channel. So if anybody knows where this village is that has smart meters, we know they're trialing it, yeah. But it seems to be top secret for some reason. It's not come out. But if anybody knows where it is or has a smart meter, by all means, let us know. Which kind of brings us on to a little bit. We need to go and talk about water meters now. So, Mike, by the way, before we go on to more water meters, we just spoke to Mike during the break, and Mike says that if you go over to stopsmartmeters.org.uk, there's loads of information over there that you can download and use for evidence to show people what's been done. Do you want to explain that briefly, Mike, what you have on your site?
Sure. We have a leaflet that you can download in PDF format straight from there. You go onto the site, it's in the top right-hand corner. You can't miss it. It's double-sided. And we spent quite a while on it trying to encapsulate into two sides of A4 the main issues. There's huge amounts you can say about it, but that's a good starting place. What you'll also find there is some, obviously, lots and lots of links to studies. We have a dedicated page that provides links to details of more than 5,000 studies showing harmful effects from electromagnetic radiation. So use that. We are also linked to some great groups here in the UK, Wi-Fi in schools, Mass Sanity, Wired Child, Power Watch I've mentioned. There's a few that are listed on our site who've done some amazing work for a lot longer than we have, trying to raise the alarm about this. And they've published some great studies as well. And I know that there has been some real success in parents consolidating information and taking it to, school governors and principals and getting them to think twice and even remove wireless from schools. So, use that as a resource.
And Walter has done that, and they have, or not Walter, somebody that Walter knows has done that, and they had to remove the Wi-Fi from the school because they were threatened to be sued if they didn't remove it. Let's talk about, hang on, Lord Faber, do you have a link to the site and PDF? Right, Steve's going to post that up. Let's talk about water meters, Mike, and get into that.
Sure. Well, yeah, this is something that's kind of coming about a little bit under the radar, because when there's talk here about smart meters, it's only really in the context of energy, electricity and gas. But actually, some of the water companies here are rolling out smart meters already, and it kind of seems as though this is a different part of the program. I've mentioned this in previous interviews, so if you've heard me talk about this previously, then apologies, but it is really, really important. We published a report from by Dr. Andrew Goldsworthy a month or two ago. We also included in the post a story that I think the Daily Mail or possibly the Telegraph had run with regards to water meters and water shortages, etc. And Dr. Goldsworthy, who is an honorary lecturer in biology at UCL, University College London here, he has done some fantastic work in the field of the effect of electromagnetic radiation exposure to water. And I hope I'm not paraphrasing him incorrectly here, but the study that we published, or the report that we published of his, which references both his own study and many other studies as well, showed that if you expose water to electromagnetic fields for a given length of time, and then you consume that water, it has a similar effect on the body as if you were exposed to that electromagnetic radiation yourself. And one of the particularly bad things about this is that an impact of that is that it increases the toxicity of any poisons that are in your body. So I don't know whether you've been out today and breathed in maybe some car fumes, but you'll have toxins in your body. If you have methyl mercury amalgam fillings in your mouth, if you've ever been vaccinated and you've had vaccines that have got heavy metal in them, and other adjuvants in them, then potentially that's a problem as well. This is really, really bad news, and it's just not something that's being talked about. We've sought clarification on it, but the reason why this is an issue for water smart meters is twofold. Firstly, the water meters are going to need to be read So, typically they'll sit and then, outside your home underneath the road. And some companies are saying, well, we only expose, or we only come around once every month or two to wave our wand over the meter to get the readings. So apparently it's not a problem for water companies to pay, occasional visits to your home. But some meters actually use long wave radio technology, and because can be so far down beneath the ground, and they're looking at having technology that's capable of communicating back to your cell tower. So there's potentially quite strong electromagnetic fields there, but some of these meters also use electromagnetic flow control and flow measurement technologies. So this is, no moving parts. It's in terms of reading how much water you're using. The water that's going into your home is being exposed to electromagnetic radiation.
Well, we know, there's so many qualities that you can get out of water, and if the water is going to be irradiated with this technology and going to affect us, I mean, they are really trying to get us every which way they can, really, aren't they?
In my view, it's not something that's going to, make us healthier as a nation, by any means. And when you really consider all the aspects to this program, and apparently the benefits to us as consumers is that we'll no longer have people calling at our doors a couple of times a year, which in itself is also a fallacy, because current analog meters can have a lifespan of up to 50 years and beyond. I mean, I don't know when the last time you had your meter changed or even had it serviced, but these things were pretty well made. Smart meters can have, rated lifespans of as little as, 10 years, potentially less. And they also require annual servicing as well. So you're still going to have somebody from the energy company coming round and forcing you to open your door so that they can service your meter. What are the other benefits that are being touted, apart from estimated bills? Well, it's green. It uses... it's going to provide you with a means to use less energy. Well, they're both fallacies as well. As well as harming humans and animals, these microwaves are very capable of harming our natural environment as well. So they're certainly not green. And in terms of energy usage, these things are digital. They come coupled with an in-home display, which is also digital. So arguably, they're going to be using more energy. And the fallacy that we're going to save money, the latest figures I've heard are savings of £23 a year. I don't know what that is in euros. Maybe 25, 30 euros, something like that per year. And that's if you have at least two smart meters, one for your electricity and one for your gas. So multiply your 160 times to 800 times as powerful and 190,000 times a day by 2, and then you'll get the real exposure that you're getting from these meters.
That's madness. That's just madness. And we're going to be bathed in this.
Sorry,
that's okay. No, I was just going to say we're going to be bathed in Wi-Fi, these microwave signals all over the place. Now, I know it's very hard getting away from it when you go down to the town centre and stuff like that, but in your own house, you can do what you can to try and at least reduce it, if not try and get rid of it. And I think with the fact that they know over here in Ireland we're talking about getting water meters in and they're doing experiments. We even have put up a water meter on our OYM website. You can actually go down to recent articles, because a neighbour of mine came around and knocked on the door and said, they put a water meter in. And so we went down, took a photo of it, and then the next day when we went to have a look, it was gone. But they came back, put it in again, so they were experimenting. So as soon as we knew it was in, we ran around again, took a photo of it, and then came back and then put it on the website. So with the advent of the water meters now, I don't know what we can do over here in Ireland anyway, where me and Steve are. Where the water meter would go is right outside the property. It's outside the boundary wall. So I'm not sure where we would stand regarding turning around to the water meter people and saying, I don't want that meter.
I think I can answer that for you. There's absolutely nothing we can do. We can rant and rave and stamp our feet and hold our breath, but it's outside. It's not on our property. So, as far as I'm aware, there's nothing we can do unless it was giving off harmful RF or EMF, and it could be proven that it was maybe damaging health.
Now, there is, I know a couple of people have done this, and I'm not condoning it, but I'm just kind of saying it just for the hell of it.
You're putting ideas into people's heads. You're sowing seeds.
I would never put ideas into people's heads. But I just heard a story which I thought was quite interesting, that where the meters are actually outside the house property or the house boundary, what they were doing is they were tracing the mains back into the house, and where the mains was coming into the house, they put a stopcock on it, and then they actually filled the shore full of cement. But now, I wouldn't actually recommend anybody do that for health and safety reasons and everything else, but this is what they did. So obviously, if they came along to install the water meter, they couldn't get in there because it was full of cement, but the people in the household could actually still control the main supply by a stopcock. With the mains pipe coming in. But again, as I said, I don't condone them sort of things. I just happen to say that on the radio, just for information purposes and education only.
So, you mentioned not potentially being able to get away from these things outside your home. Think about people who are in apartments. Think about people who are in terraced houses. I met, an elderly lady a couple of months back who contacted me because she was so concerned about smart meters. She thinks that her neighbours' meters are going to kill her, even if she manages to successfully say no to these things and stop them from installing one. She suffers so badly from neighbouring Wi-Fi in the small terraced housing that she lives in. She thinks smart meters are going to kill her. So, my heart absolutely goes out for people who are going to have banks of these things, potentially right next to their home.
Yeah, well, this is the thing. If people live in flats, they're going to be surrounded by this Wi-Fi technology, the smart meter technology, and the Wi-Fi signals coming from it. And even if you manage successfully to stop it, you have your neighbours who might just not know anything about this or just can't be bothered. They just don't get it. And see, this is the trouble with everything that's going on at the moment with the likes of food, the aspartame, the MSG, the fluoride in the water. And now we're talking about meters.
Yeah.
People will come to you and go, "You're a bit of a conspiracy theory. It looks like everything's bad for us." And technically, most things are. But that's the way they'll view it. They'll just think you're a nutter.
Well, yeah, there's a number of angles that you can choose here. I've said before that there's something for everybody to dislike about smart meters. One angle is costs, bills. I don't know whether we published this, but it's definitely mentioned in our leaflet. There was a study conducted over a 1-year period in Toronto in Canada that showed after smart meters had been installed, 80% of people's bills went up, often by more than 50%. So if you want to make, if people aren't listening to you about health effects, if they're not bothered about privacy, my stock question, if somebody says I've got nothing to hide, is, well, would you mind taking all of your clothes off immediately then, please? People do have something to hide, but, if they're not getting it, there's things we'd rather not share, certainly things I'd rather not share with, corporations seeking to, maximise their profits and value for shareholders. That directly plays into the fact that they would not be deploying these things if they weren't going to get a healthy return on them. So, it should be fairly easy to help people understand that they're going to be getting higher bills. That is the bottom line. And with this, new vision that they have for a smart home, they'll be introducing new tariffs. So they've talked openly about the fact that it will help people to, decide when to put their washing machine on and decide when to have a shower or at what temperature they need to have their fridge at in order to keep their bills down. And you can absolutely see that is a race to the bottom where we're using as little energy as possible to function because it's simply not affordable to live our lives in the way that we do currently. My view is that we have to fight these things as though our life styles depend on it because our way of living depends on it.
It does. Yeah, I will say that I am big into technology and gadgets, okay? And so is Steve. We're both into it. But we're into it in a way where it has to be safe and not used for sinister purposes. So if we had a society where we had this technology and it was for the better of man but wasn't there to damage us, I'd support it because I love gadgets and I love technology. But as it is, we're using technology that's dangerous and it's being used for sinister purposes, and this is the problem. And the same with the water meter. So if we don't start putting our foot down and stopping things, then they will, especially over here in Ireland, they're not in yet. They're trying to bring it in. We're going to have to put our foot down with that. But listen, Mike, it's come to that time. It's been a fantastic interview. Great information. Thanks a lot for coming on. Much appreciated. We'll have to get you on in a few months' time, I think, and we'll get an update on what you're up to. I'm going to pass you over to Steve, and Steve will go through your bits and pieces for advertising and websites and stuff like that.
Yeah, because I have nothing better to do but go through people's bits and pieces. So open your wallet there. Let's go through the bits and pieces. Anyway, Mike, no, all I do is kind of do a little bit of a sum up there with you and ask, can you maybe give people the address of the website again where they can find out some more information about the fantastic work that you guys are doing over there, and if you have maybe a book, a DVD, or even a YouTube channel that you might want to share with people so they can find out some more information.
Oh, I wish we had some of those things over time, hopefully. But we have a site at the moment. So our online presence is at stopsmartmeters.org.uk. We also have a campaign that's running. If there's any UK listeners, you can go to don'tsmartmeter.me, which will take you directly to our page where you can enter your name and your address and send a message of non-consent and liability to about 50 energy companies, utilities and their subsidiaries. We've included ministers, MPs, shadow ministers, the two heads of the the Health Protection Agency, and various other interested parties. And you can basically just complete your details there. We've had about 250 signatures so far, and in the process we've generated, about 19,000 notices to the heart of the energy and utilities industry. So please help us to keep that going.
Excellent. I find it hard to ignore 19,000.
Yeah, we hope so. And offline we've just got a Twitter account now, which is @SpyMeters. We have a Facebook page which you can find on our site. But our leaflet, I can't emphasise enough. If you are concerned about smart meters, as concerned as I was, or even approaching it, then that, and you're feeling minded to doing something and helping to, raise awareness, that is nature's autoimmune response kicking in for the kind of society that is emerging. Please act on it. Please speak to your neighbours. Please speak to your family and your friends, and just help them to understand that these things are really bad news. So our leaflet will help you do that. But, you guys and your listeners are incredibly well informed. Please act on that information.
That's brilliant, Mike. Listen, Mike, that's fantastic. Thanks for coming on. Everybody pop off to Mike's website there.
Thanks so much for having me on, guys.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for coming on. Appreciate the information there. We'll go to a musical break and we'll be back after this.
This is Open Your Mind Radio on OYMIreland.com, PNSradio.ning.com and ICRadioNetwork.com.
And we are back. And who was that last song by? For those who are interested, it was Rainbow I Surrender. A nice little song just to complement the AC/DC we had earlier. So.
Yeah, no, that was a good
headbanging stuff.
Good interview with Mike regarding smart meters. As we say, you can buy this equipment if you have the money. You can. The equipment is out there to actually do your own checking and check your own house and check your neighbour's house and your family's house, and then you can check your kids. And we're trying to do the targeted individual thing. We're trying to do it in a very clinical way. Exactly the way the protocols and procedures used by Lars and used by Jesse. So we'll keep you posted on that. As I say, we need the funding for the frequency counter. So if you do have a few quid, by all means, if you can help us raise funds for the frequency counter, we'll get that in. And then once we do the training with Lars, we're ready to go and start scanning people, really.
We're even going to get the white coats and all. We're going to get a doctorate now, we will. But I was going to say, in relation to the device there, I mean, it's one thing going into your neighbour or your family and go on, get the fly. There's a fly here annoying now. He's going to try and escort him off the premises. But yeah, it's one thing going into your neighbour or your friends and family and talking to them about the dangers of RFID, or not so much, RF, and say Wi-Fi DECT phones and all this sort of stuff. And you can give them paper, reams and reams of paper and leaflets until you're blue in the face. But it's one thing when... It's a different thing, when you can actually go into them with a device, like say the RF Hunter, and actually they can visibly hear what's going on. Yeah, and even the other device there that Walter used, the smog detector. I mean, when you actually walk over to your Wi-Fi or you walk your DECT phone, and they can hear it coming out, and it's the proof is there. And I think that kind of speaks volumes. The way the people say a picture paints 1,000 words, and I think that's true. But yeah, I mean, everything that Mike said there, I would endorse that, because all the information and all the research that we've seen here and other people we've spoken to is all kind of corroborating exactly what Mike has said. So I mean, we have to kind of take a stand against it, and I'm going to download some of the PDFs off Mike's site as well there, print them out and hand them out as well.
Definitely. And just to answer Lord Vapor's question there, are people in Ireland being targeted in Ireland, in the Republic? Yes, they are. There are people in Ireland that are being targeted. They are targeted and they want to be scanned. They've got in touch with us and they've asked us to be scanned. Just a preliminary scanning. And after the scan, if it does come up that they do have some kind of transmitter inside them, then what they'll need to do is either get an X-ray or MRI to actually check where it is, and then find a way, if they want to get it taken out, to be taken out. We are looking at different ways to try and switch off the chips that are in there. Now, we know about the Very chip that's in America. They're talking about the Very chip. But these chips we're talking about are so small, I mean, basically the size of a pinhead. And they're in people. And as a carbon-based life form, you shouldn't have anything inside your body transmitting signal. It's that simple. And yet the RF detector is picking up signals from these people. The website that you need to go to, I can't think off the top of my head, but if you type targeted people, I think it's something like iccact.org, something like that. But if you go to YouTube and type in Jesse Beltrain or Lars Jurgard, you'll also see the guys doing scanning.
Just rolls off the tongue, doesn't it?
It does indeed.
There's probably people wondering how to spell that.
Yeah, well, don't ask me to spell it. Yeah, don't ask me to spell it. But yeah, just targeted individuals. If you Google it, you'll get loads of information regarding targeted individuals.
Yeah. ICAA. I'm just going to read it now. It's ICAACT.org. I'll just actually post.
Post that up on the chat facility. Are they in specific movements or something? No, Jesse and Lars are just two guys that got together and offered scanning for people who are targeted. Now, not all targeted people are chipped, okay? Just because you don't have a chip, it doesn't mean that you cannot be targeted. You can be targeted. So, what's the chances of a non-TI having RFID chips through vaccines? Yes.
Very good. Very probable.
Very, very probable that if you have been vaccinated, there's a good chance that you might have received some kind of chipping. I think there's a doctor, Walter Graham was talking about a doctor in Germany who's actually found out information regarding that. The flu vaccine was one of them, where you could be chipped through that. So, to get scanned it doesn't take too long to be scanned, but if people want to be scanned, just send us an email, we'll put you on the list, and then we'll organise a time and place when we have our frequency counter. So, as I say, all funds to that would be fantastic. And anything else that's going on? Well, as we said, we did an interview with Stuart Studlow today in Dublin Airport. We're putting that together, and when we have that done, it'll be up on YouTube. We'll send an email out to our registered users, so don't forget to register, because you'll be in touch with all the information that we get in, all the links. And if there's any good news that you have, send us the links over. It'd be good to get some good news.
Yeah, good news would be good. I mean, as we kind of said before, we don't like being the bearer of bad news, and we hate kind of talking and dwelling on on bad news and kind of stuff of a negative nature, because I know from experience when you're talking about, or you're thinking about, or you're focusing on negative stuff, well then it's not doing your health any good. So that's why we kind of try, we do our best, and I'm sure regular listeners will kind of know that anytime we do have a guest on who's kind of not spreading bad news, but kind of giving negative information, we always try and finish with positive solutions.
Okay, do you want to chat to and just let people know, just for next week, by the way, we have Marcus McKeown on our show. Now, it's a pre-record, but it's a very, very good interview. Very good information from Marcus, so don't miss that. But if you want to talk about who's on TNS now at 9 o'clock?
Yeah, I've just been chatting to the guys there over TNS, and I believe Walter Graham, who we speak so fondly of here on OYM, and an all-round good guy and a gentleman. I believe he's going to be getting interviewed by Vin on TNS at 9 p.m. So if you fancy more great information, just, when you're done here, log on to tnsradio.ning.com and sit back and relax for another couple of hours.
Exactly. So I'll be keeping tabs on things during the week. I'm just curious. I know John Moore talks a lot about. He's very trigger-happy old John. He loves the guns. But I'm just going to, during the week I'll be listening to him and listening to what's going on. So, and I'll just report back, just of a matter of interest, just to see what's going on, because it's quite interesting now and again. When he's not talking about guns and talking about other stuff, it's quite interesting. So we'll have a listen to that. But for the time being, we're near that time, so we're going to hand over to Vin at TNS Radio. So take it easy, have a good week, check out all about smart meters, guys, and check out the RF Detector. If you want to, if you have the money, then obviously get one. You can do your own checking yourself. And if anything comes up during the week, we'll send out emails through the registered user. So for myself, Alan James, good night.
Okay, good night, Alan James. Right, and for myself, Stephen George as well, thanks a million for everyone who listened in. It's been absolutely fantastic, and we'll do it all again in 7 days. Take care. Bye-bye.
Open your mind.